I'm James Rule. Welcome to the Lonely Leader podcast, where we help existing and aspiring leaders find clarity, build resilience, drive performance, and enhance fulfillment. Hello, and welcome to the Lonely Leader podcast. I'm James Rule, and today I want to talk about leadership lessons, and specifically lessons that I received during my tenures as a chief executive. Now, I'm in a wonderful position, and it's something I'm eternally grateful for, that I get to work with such a diverse array of people in organizations all around the world. And within that work, in my capacity as a coach, as a trainer, and a mentor, I never stop learning. I am exposed to best practice, new ideas, strategies, solutions, and also insights into things that evidently don't work. So I'm always learning. The foundation from which I was able to step into that space was from my own personal experiences as a CEO. And they have been very much foundational, as I say, to how I try and maintain my authenticity. I don't stand in an ivory tower preaching theoretical knowledge that you could just simply pick up in a book. I try and use lived life experience as a leader in the particularly intensive sporting sector and adapt and draw that through into the work that I use to support people's growth and development. So this is probably going to spread over 2 episodes, but I want to pull out some of the key lessons that I learned and some of the things that have become fundamental in my teaching, coaching, and mentoring. And I hope that these support you, give you confidence to keep focusing and pushing forward in your own growth and development, but also just as ever, give you prompts and causes for reflection. I'd love to say that all of these insights came to me on day one of becoming a chief executive. Of course they didn't. Some of them took me many, many years to learn, and I am no different to anybody else. You often have blind spots or an inability to take the hints and the learnings that have been presented to you, and those things just keep coming at you through success and failure until those lessons are truly learned. So I hope you find these insightful, and I'll kick things off with the first key learning of never stop learning. I think that is fundamental. When we are at school, university, or perhaps first starting at a job, we embrace the need to learn. We look to sharpen our skills, but the higher up the hierarchy we go, the list of demands and pressures on our time increase, and it becomes easy to neglect the need to keep learning. And so whatever role or sector you're in, how do you keep yourself fresh and sharp? And for those of you that are perhaps starting out on your leadership journey, then never waste an opportunity to learn about your role and indeed about the wider organization. Before I actually put my hat in the ring to become a chief executive, I was working as a commercial director, and I began to develop my knowledge of the wider workings of the business outside of the specifics of the commercial department. I took the opportunity to have meetings, to have coffees, to have casual conversations in the canteen, etc., to start to understand the wider business footprint. Now, obviously, that didn't neglect from my core duties. I wasn't AWOL from my commercial responsibilities, but in and around that, there are opportunities for all of us to explore other roles, other areas of the business, because that learning helps you to develop clarity about what you may want to do in the future. Now, the second key learning is indeed clarity. You need to know where you are, where you're trying to get to, and how you plan to get there. Now, drop the mic, what a revolutionary statement. But please don't dismiss this simple premise, because I work with a lot of people that are so overwhelmed with the scope and depth of their to-do list, the never-ending list of emails, meetings, demands on their time, that they do not consistently take the time to reflect on exactly where they are, where they're trying to get to, and how they're going to get there. It is absolutely foundational. If you don't have that in place, how on earth can you build appropriate strategy, tweak and course correct strategy? And this applies both to your professional role and to your personal life. So as that starts to ruminate in your mind now, what I will add to that is this is not a patronizing statement. Some of the highest performers I work with who are absolutely elite in what they do recognize that they are very much head down in the moment and lacking an ability to lift their head up and be a bit more strategic because they haven't taken the time out to find clarity. So wherever you are, whatever role you're in, where are you trying to get to? Is it a higher level of performance in this existing role? Perhaps it's a different role. Perhaps it's moving to a different organization. Whatever that goal may be, we need to shoot forward and look at the destination and then work back and start developing a plan. The third leadership lesson is retain your authenticity. We are all individuals. We are all different. There is nobody exactly the same as you. And we need to hold on to that premise when we step into senior roles. It's very easy, particularly if you've been promoted from within and you knew your predecessor, to operate in the same manner, style, way as that predecessor. I experienced that when I stepped into my first CEO role. My predecessor was a lovely man. He was quite a few years older than me, and his specialism was finance and accounting. He had a certain style, a certain leadership way, presence, and because I was relatively young in my late 20s, perhaps a little bit lacking in confidence, that I felt, that's the way I need to be. And I very quickly realized, actually, no, that's not me. No disrespect to his style. I had a different style. I was a little bit more people focused. Perhaps I brought a little bit more humor to my style. But that's not saying one way is right and one way is wrong, far from it. But what I realized is if I want to maximize my impact and truly engage with the people I am tasked to lead, I can't pretend to be something I'm not. I have to be authentic. And whilst I learned that lesson relatively early in my leadership tenure, it's something that served me and continues to serve me. That authenticity, being true to who you are, irrespective of what company you are in, what role you are in, so that people know that whilst they might not always agree with everything you say, they know that they are getting the real you, the authentic you. You're not changing like a chameleon depending on the audience or company that you keep. And this ties into my next lesson, make people feel valued. There are so many ways to do that, but fundamentally, your success as a leader stands and falls on your ability to get the best out of your team. Now, yes, you need to ensure that they are technically competent and there is skill and development work that needs to be done in every role. But the X factor is make them feel something, make them feel valued. When people feel a sense of value, then their loyalty to you, their trust in you, and their commitment and motivation is massively enhanced. But you can't just tell people to feel valued. It's your actions and your words that will do that. And this ties into my former point. If people don't feel that they're getting the authentic you, it strikes at that sense of trust. And very quickly, you start to find that you're building on a foundation of sand. Conversely, when they know who you are, what you stand for, what your values are, and that you are consistently the authentic you, then that is step number one. I think there are so many areas under this that I could take a whole episode on it, but what you need to do is listen. Truly listen to people, give them a voice. When people feel that they can contribute to strategy, when they can contribute to the development of ideas and innovation, they feel a far higher sense of ownership and accountability. 2 ears, 1 mouth. We were told that for a reason, and perhaps that's something that it took me a while to learn in the early stages of my leadership journey. I'd want to jump in. I recognize the problem. I know what you need to do. Let me tell you what to do. Crack on. Let's go. Thinking that was leadership 101. Yes, you've got to give a direction of travel. Yes, you've got to support people in finding the right answers, but let them explore it first. Listen first. I think coming back to valuing people, never underestimate the impact of gratitude. And I'll actually extract that and make that a standalone lesson. Gratitude is such a powerful leadership trait. When you express gratitude to people for a job well done, it makes them feel valued. Because often people go the extra mile. They'll be working longer hours than are required. They may have to work into a weekend. They may be stepping in at short notice to cover a shift. And if that is never seen, never recognized, then it becomes quite demoralizing. On the contrary, when a leader takes the time just to drop a note to somebody, a text, a call, an email, and just recognize that effort, that incident where someone has gone the extra mile, then it really emboldens people to say, well, that was hard, but it was appreciated, and they are far more likely to do it again in the future. And on that premise of giving feedback, sometimes it's one-to-one. Sometimes you're expressing gratitude in a very closed format, an email, a text. Sometimes there's scope to do it in front of a wider group. We've all got an ego. And whilst we'll all argue to the contrary, it's nice to be praised in front of our peers. So take the opportunity when it arises to express gratitude, thanks, and praise for a job well done. And my final point on this, as I've mentioned in previous episodes, never underestimate the value of a personalized note. We don't use pen and paper very often anymore. Everything's digital, and we particularly don't spend a lot of time sending letters. So if somebody has really gone over and above and you want to maximize your impact, then take a moment to write a personalized letter. The impact of that is immense. I would also encourage you to recognize special occasions, Christmas, etc. Where possible. I appreciate if you've got thousands of staff, it's harder and harder, but irrespective of the size of your workforce, taking the time to personally put pen to paper in a card or a note will make an immense difference in making people feel valued. An additional footnote on this is something, again, I've talked about. Do you need to have your people at work on their birthday? Now, in some situations, surgeons, etc., spring to mind. I do a lot of work in the NHS. Things are booked in. It's very difficult to say you don't have to be here on your birthday. I also do work within the military. If people are deployed, they're not going to be able to take their birthday off. And equally in sport, if you are playing a fixture, your club is playing on your birthday, you can't really stand down. So I'm putting some of the barriers to that proposition in place early on. However, outside of those areas, there will be some people in your team that do not need to be at work on their birthday. And I would encourage you to explore giving them their birthday off. Now, when I first positioned that, I can remember a couple of colleagues, my finance director, sort of scratching their head saying, we're just giving time and money away. My philosophy is you get far more back on the return. Because do any of us really want to be at our desk on a birthday? Yes, lots of us love our jobs. I'm not saying we don't, but would you have a more fulfilling day if you were spending it with your children or with your partner or with a good friend or indulging in a hobby that you are truly passionate about? I think most people would lean that way. And when you give people that opportunity to take a day off unexpectedly to celebrate the birthday, you get a spike in work in the run-up, bit like clearing your desk to go on holiday, and you get a spike in performance when they come back, born out of gratitude. So that was something that I always tried to put into play wherever I could. Give people a ability to have their birthday and celebrate their birthday. And I'm over elaborating perhaps this value your people point, but if there is something going on within the family dynamic of your staff, they've got a loved one, a child or a partner that is sick and needs some support, give them a day to get things sorted out. I'm not saying that you sign them off indefinitely before anybody pushes back and says, that's ridiculous, you can't do that. But hand on heart, how many of us are truly operating at our peak capacity if one of our children or our husband or wife is really sick and struggling to get to the hospital or to an appointment? Give them that time back. I'll stop there on the value your people piece, but you can see how passionate I am about it. And I find too many leaders get lost in KPIs, numbers, P&Ls, etc. Yes, of course, that's essential, monitoring and managing those statistics. But the reality is, who's going to help you enhance them? It's your people. So it is, for me, Leadership 101. You've got to do everything in your power to make your people feel valued. And by default, all those KPIs will be enhanced. The business will perform better. You will become more profitable. The next leadership lesson that I embraced early in my CEO tenure was the notion that age is not a barrier. In a sporting context, when you're talking about elite athletes, most coaches around the world embrace the notion that if you're good enough, you're old enough. We see a whole raft of examples every year of teenage stars stepping onto the tennis courts or onto a team soccer field or rugby or cricket. You name it, there are examples of people being given an opportunity at an early age. Yes, they're inexperienced, but the coaches recognize that there's some talent, and the only way to nurture and develop that talent is to get them on the field of play. Now, conversely, in industry, that we are still held back a lot by people taking a notion that, well, you're young, you're inexperienced, it's too much of a risk to give you a chance. We need to keep you on the sidelines and develop your knowledge and understanding, and in a few years' time, we'll give you a chance. Well, the harsh reality is, if they are truly a high potential performer, they're not going to wait around for years for the opportunity, and you are going to lose them from your team or your organization. So we need to step through this old-fashioned deluded notion that if you're young and inexperienced, you're not ready. With youthful naivety comes insight that can sometimes unlock the door to innovative and creative solutions that have previously not been embraced. And I, wherever I could, would give people opportunities irrespective of their level of experience. They can develop their experience, you can develop the skill, but if they've got a character and energy, an intellect that you want to harness, then bring it in. Find a way to bring that into the team. And equally, on the subject of age, I worked with a number of individuals who were more senior in their career, who had worked in one specific area of the business, but had a passion and an appetite to retrain and to move into another area. It goes back to my very first point about continuous learning. They'd recognized that actually they felt the need for something different to lift their energy and their engagement and their fulfillment, and they'd identified opportunities. Now, it's very easy to say, well, yeah, you've not done this before and this isn't your area. Well, don't be so naive as to close off that potential. Even if they haven't done it in the past, what are the barriers to entry? How can you upskill and develop the knowledge to give them an opportunity? Because truth be told, if they've already set the heart on making that change, they're going to either make it with you or they're going to leave your organization in order to make it with somebody else. So I'll leave that point there, but suffice to say, always have your eyes and ears open for talent. Doesn't matter their age, doesn't matter their experience. Talent is talent, and you can shape it using your leadership style to enhance your team. But don't be blinded that somebody's too young or too old. Embrace their talent, bring it into your team and develop it. The format of the Lonely Leader podcast to date has been short, punchy episodes that are not onerous to listen to, that are easy to digest and easy to accommodate within your busy schedule. So I'm going to pause this particular episode here, and I will continue the insight into the leadership lessons in the next episode. Thanks for listening to the Lonely Leader podcast. I'd be very grateful if you could share and follow if the content resonates. And if you're looking for additional free resource to support your continued growth and development, then please do check out our social media and website details in the show notes. Remember, quality leadership on the outside must always start within.